Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkeys Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Dixie's kind of first coon that she treated, so she was 6 months and 1 day. I had taken her the weekend before with Alex. We went coon hunting, and his dogs treated a couple coons, and then probably like 2 days later, I had trapped 2 coons and showed them to her in the trap and let one go, and it climbed the tree, and she treated it. And then the next night we went, and I heard her start treeing, which she had barked at other stuff before, but it was a dead deer or something she had found, and that was like the first coon she had actually treated. She was at the bottom of the tree treeing it.
Nice.
And I shot it out to her, and we went, I don't know, another 10 minutes walking. She treated another one, and walking back to the truck, she ended up treating a third one. So she went like one night, just like clicked.
Yeah, when that light switch flipped, it really flipped.
Yeah, and it's been, just kind of cool to see you, because I spent, when she was 4 months old, I just started taking her. Just getting her used to the woods and working on commands and stuff. And I had a lot of long nights where we just walked around the woods and didn't do anything. She'd bark at a dead deer.
Well, like you said, you just got into this. You starting from scratch, just, I don't know, like that's a big challenge to overcome. Most people, they've got somebody, they've, had a more experienced dog or something like that, So just to start from scratch, and that's a big, hill to climb and figure it all out.
Yeah. I mean, it was great to see, and then from there it was just every night we would go out. She pretty much tree one at least. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, Cody, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. I'm Cody Hesseltine. I live kind of just in the suburbs of DC here. I have 2 young Laikas that I got both of them from Alex. One is a import chooch, and the other one's Dixie, who is out of his dog Sever and Kuma. So
yeah, and we met last year when I hunted with Alex and Eric, and so your dogs were real young then.
Yeah, Dixie would have been 4 months, and I didn't have Chooch yet. I didn't get her until February.
Okay.
That was when Alex had brought her, and then he had got another young male Julek that he started hunting.
Okay.
As well. So yeah, I hunted quite a bit with Alex this year, which is really great because I got, my dog's got to see a lot of bears because of his older dogs. So, and it was kind of neat to see the younger dogs. We, first couple of ones we treed, we'd let the bear come out and just let the young dogs chase after it, and every single one they treed.
There you go. Nice.
So it's kind of neat to see, dogs that are just over a year old starting to do it on their own.
So you're not new to hunting, but what made you want to get into running dogs in general?
So I grew up, we had coon hounds as a kid. I grew up in kind of upstate New York, where it was really, real rural and remote. It was all farms pretty much up there, and we were kind of right on the edge of the Adirondack Mountains. So I had coon hounds, and then we ran beagles too on hair. So I kind of, once I moved down here after getting out of school, I kind of fell out of dog hunting just because I was bow hunting pretty much for deer, and I lived in an apartment for a while, and then we bought this house here, and I went up to Maine with my dad. He had done a bear hunt, which was bait, and when he was leaving, there was a guy coming to run for the clients there at that Outfitters up in Maine, and he had said that he wanted to do that. So I was like, yeah, I definitely will go up and do that. I'd never bear hunted with dogs, so I went up that first year and ended up getting lucky. I killed a bear that first morning, 8 o'clock.
Nice.
And where we hunt up there, they'll tree some bears, but for the most part, it's kind of cool. They're, basically trying to shoot them on road crossings because they logged everything. And most of the places, there's not trees big enough a bear is going to climb up. So most of the time, they just dump one to maybe 3 dogs to start off of a bear, one of the baits there. And then it's just trying to catch them crossing the road. I mean, if it's not a huge bear, and they get into an area where they think they can tree it, they'll dump more dogs in, but you can still only run
6, I think.
6, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of crazy compared to, I've seen guys in Virginia that have 30 dogs.
My first bear tree, my first tree
while bear hunting, we'll say it that way. I think there was like 25 dogs at the base of that tree. We got there and there was nothing up it.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. So you went on a bear hunt with hounds. You really liked it. So how did that end up? You ended up getting some Laikas. I mean, hounds to Laikas.
Yeah. So I went on that first year. I went up there 2 more times. I actually went out to Idaho as well. And I hunted actually with Bradley, who you've done a couple podcasts with.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And yeah, his dogs were really good. And same thing. I mean, Rob Cook's the guy from Virginia that goes up and runs his dogs at the outfitter up in Maine that I went to, and his dog's really good. And I was like trying to look into it. I was like, I mean, you can see where I live. Don't have room for a pack of hounds here. I'm in town with a quarter acre. And then I ran across Alex, I think on Facebook or something. I was kind of looking into what he was doing, and I ended up reaching out to him. And I think we went coon hunting the first time. And then I went during training season with him, and I think his dogs treed 3 bears that morning.
Nice.
He had puppies at that time, and I was like, I want one. So I ended up getting
well, Alex isn't that far from here.
No, he's just under an hour from here. So
that's so that worked out really well.
Yeah.
That one of the biggest names in Laikas currently, especially publicly, like putting a lot of, information and videos and pictures out there, happen to be in your backyard.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's worked out great. I got to, hunt with him a lot in December. So my dog's got to see a lot of bears, and, he's been really, open with any information I ask. He's really always been willing to help me. So
that's awesome.
It's definitely cut down the learning curve and eliminating a lot of, errors, having that knowledge. And like I said, I mean, Rob's been great too, because he's been, hunting bears for like 30 years, with hounds, but it's still not the same, but it's similar. You don't get a lot of good information out of him. So those two have definitely helped me a lot. So
and where's he from?
He lives down near Roanoke area.
Okay.
So
a little bit more of a haul.
Yeah. Actually, I hunted down there quite a bit last year, because in Northern Virginia there was hardly any bears out. There was some kind of still out in that area, and that's where I spent a little bit of time. Then we went further south, and then kind of finished up the season in West Virginia. So
a friend of mine in Northern Virginia, like kind of Northern Virginia, not as far north as Alex, but he was saying that the last few years have been absolutely horrible because of mange in general. So you hopped into this at probably not the most optimal time for bear numbers. So
yeah, I actually just was reading something today. I think they might be changing the season in the northern part of Virginia, kind of the northern part of the way it looked like down to Roanoke. They might shorten the they're gonna proposing shorten the seasons, and I think the hound season they were saying would be from like December 22nd till whenever it goes out, like that first Saturday in
that would
January.
Really cut the season down.
Yeah, which I mean, I can't say how much the population, I just haven't been doing it long enough, but I mean, definitely guys are talking this year how rough it was, but I don't know how much it was the bear population down versus just the bears went in early.
Yeah.
So
I've heard that from a lot of people, that this season was a tough season. We had, spotty mass crops, and then super, especially by considering the last several winters, we had an early cold front and a lot of snow, early December by comparison the last several years, where it's been later December where it really got cold.
Yeah, December was brutal. Some days when we were going out, we would have snow, and it'd be like 6-7 degrees when you start off in the morning. So, but
I went south the first week of bear season, and it was still cold down there. So,
yeah, because I talked to I don't know if you talked to him or not. I don't remember if you've done podcasts. I think George Lambert's like Mountain Mules Music.
I've met George, and I've never done a podcast with him.
Okay. I was talking to him because I hunt one of the areas he does, and would run into him at the gas station there. Well, same area where we hunted there.
Yeah.
last year, and he was saying he thinks a lot of the bears were in by November just due to the spotty mass crop.
Yep. If there's no food and it's cold, they're not going to stay out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and like we were talking earlier, it was like stark difference running, the early seasons. You're running areas where there's a lot of bears. They're trying to reduce the numbers.
Yeah.
But you were going from what we were seeing in September and October for bears to like December. There was a few times I went with Alex. We like 200 yards from the truck that they'd get on. You just get out of the truck and there'd be a bear right in there. The dogs would find and tree it, and then we went several days sometimes without.
Yeah.
Getting on a bear. If we did, they didn't want to tree. They'd want to stay on the ground and bay up. So that was kind of big difference. So, but I mean, that was kind of same story. I was here. I mean, Heath on his podcast, he was saying the same thing. And
exactly.
I didn't realize, how much food I guess played a part into if you get on a bear with a full belly, they're going to climb a lot quicker than one that's kind of like got an empty belly. They're going to want to run more and bay up on the ground typically, I guess, compared to one that's got a full belly, it'll just climb. So.
Yep. Food makes a big difference. Not only in that, but just like you said, like if there's a mass crop, if just being out and being active. I've heard of people still finding bears in January and even, a warm day in February, but there was food available. So it's like if there's food available, they'll still come and be around.
Yeah. I mean, that was the big thing I saw. This year too, you go to areas like where those predominantly, I would say, white oaks, they was dropped early, whatever did fall, the bears cleaned them up. And if you got into a spot where there was, red oaks still on the ground, like you started finding some, you'd find bear sign, and then it was typically, the dogs would get on something fairly quick after that. But it was, you got to do a lot of legwork trying to find where there was food still. So.
So you got into this not that long ago. What do you like about the Laikas?
As far as like from the bear hunting aspect, I like, like I said, I wouldn't be in the game if I had to have a pack of hounds because, I'd thought about it and I was like, I got to buy a new house. Like, I don't have room here. Like, my neighbors would hate me if I had, 6-7 hounds.
Your neighbors have beagles. What are they complaining for?
So, it's, it works out here. I only need 2 dogs. I would say the other thing is like, hunting here too, coon hunting, it's more suburban. I can hunt some of the smaller places because I feel like having 2 dogs, you can spend more time, you saw they live in the house too. It's like a little bit more time training with them. You're with them every day.
Yeah.
So the recall and stuff's pretty good. They're not going to get on something and take it for 5 miles. So, and also it kind of helps here. They don't bark as much as a hound. If they're not, the volume's just not there. Even when they are excited barking, it's not nearly as loud. So, it's not as obvious to people what you're doing. So, so
them neighbors, they'll get over it.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I haven't had any complaints because I've like I was telling you, the state park here. There's development and stuff all around. I've had them before. We've been walking the edge and they run in tree one, and it's not far from someone's house. But luckily nothing's happened of it yet. But I can usually. Once they get there and calm down, I can tone them and they'll come back. Or I just go in and grab them. So because that's what we were talking about, that benefit hunt that I did the other weekend. There was a guy there saying that the person he got permission from, he was asking him, why the dog was barking so loud. I guess so. I don't know how big the property was he was hunting, but he said the neighbor, or he was worried that the neighbors were going to hear it. So the guy that owned the property. So
that's funny. I don't think I've ever been asked that. The one place I've hunted a lot, whenever I get in there, the landowner has a bunch of dogs, and his wife always texts me. She's like, "Are you here?" I'm like, "Yep." She's, "I thought so." She's like, "My dogs all go crazy when you're here." She's like, "The minute they hear your dogs."
Yeah, so it works out well. I mean, they do pretty well on coons too. So it's been, when I first got the dogs, I was telling Alex, I was like, I'm not going to really coon hunt much, and then I started, just to start practicing, and then, I started really getting into it last year. I didn't go this year as much just due to January and February where it was so cold.
Sure was pretty rough.
Yeah, so I didn't go as much as I did last year, but last year they were just starting, so I've treed quite a few more coons this year than I did last year, but that also helps being a year older and a little more experience. So
Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time, family hunting tradition. is the Conkeys' motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well.
So you said you're in the suburbs here. How far do you typically have to go to hunt, whether that be coon hunt or bear hunt?
So coon hunt, I mean, I can drive 10 minutes down the road. They have a state park here that allows hunting. So I have that. And then to bear hunt, I'm at least an hour and a half to get to the northern parts, but there's not many bears there. So typically I end up driving a lot of times 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
I mean, last year I was driving sometimes almost 4 hours each way, trying to find bears further south that might still be out. So, like, I was hunted down near Roanoke quite a bit, trying to find some bears because there were still some out there.
Yeah.
So, or would get up and drive at 1 o'clock in the morning, drive 6 hours down to like the far southwest part of Virginia where there were still bears out. So, but that's definitely one area I want to explore more because I feel like the bear numbers are still pretty good there, and like some of the bears we did see were a little bit bigger in December. We definitely saw some 200+ pound bears. So
yeah, most of the bears up northern Virginia tend to be smaller.
I think so. And I think it's also just the amount of pressure. Like there's a lot more guys with hounds that are running in that area. When you get down to the southwest part, the national forest starts to shrink. It's not as big.
Okay.
And there's some more wilderness areas down there too, which I've typically noticed. The guys with hounds aren't running on as much just to it's not as many roads. So
yeah. Which for anybody that's not familiar with the way, I'm guessing you're gonna, since you hunt with Alex a lot, you hunt a similar style, so you just go into areas that tend to not have as many roads, and you guys hike a lot, right?
Yeah. Typically just start on a ridge or stream valley and walk hunt the dogs. So, and that's really just trying to get into an area where we think there's going to be some bears, and usually his dogs would find them. So,
gotcha.
And that was like a huge thing I've learned is just patience. Like, because even his young dog, he'd be like, why? Like, sometimes I'd be like, well, why aren't they doing this? And we're like, well, his young dog's not doing it either. Like, these dogs are, I think his coon was 5, maybe 6, and Sever's 3. So it's big difference in experience there, which is something I always had to remind myself too. It's like they're young.
Yeah.
So patience has been a big thing. So
now, how do you find places like living here in the suburbs, Maryland? How do you go about finding somewhere to go hunt?
Pretty much Onyx. I'll go on there. I mean, there's one of the layers in there. You can kind of hit like a road this, and it'll pull up. I don't know what the set distance is, but it'll basically draw this purple circle around areas once there's no road within a certain distance. And that's usually what I kind of look at a high level, and then we'll kind of zoom in, looking to see what the features are there. So, I mean, typically from what I kind of learned from Alex is in December, you got to go into the kind of way off the road, usually nasty, steep canyons and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where the bears are going to tend to be denning up. They like to get, as far away from people as they can to just den up, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So, but although the last day of the season in, what was it, January 4th in Virginia, I ran into some guys and was literally going to walk, that had hounds, was going to walk into this area, and we ended up jumping a bear out of that was like 200 yards off the road. So I don't know if it's always the case, or maybe that bear would just hold up in that area. It might not get walked by people either, because it was nasty and they're just thick, thick laurel and rocky. So that might just all it is people aren't going in there, so the bear feels comfortable to den up. So
yeah. So how did your dogs look this season?
Definitely huge progress from like the first time I went with Alex there, and we started going to March, which they weren't even a year old at that point, and they'd barked at a bear a little bit, the one that his dogs treed, they started treating bears on their own too. I mean, I treed probably maybe 4 or 5 they had treed on their own, either when I was with Alex, they did, or I went with them a couple. We were without them a couple times and treated some bears. So
nice.
So yeah, I mean the best was I went up to New York and ran because they don't have an actual season where you can hunt them, but you're allowed to train. And I went up there and was running off of some standing corn that the bears were getting into, and that like we treat some big bears too. Like Chooch treed one that was probably at that 350 to 400 pound range by herself, and that was like the first bear she had treated by herself. But also, you talk about the food plays a big thing when the bear's been in there and corn, gorging itself. They don't like to run. And I was surprised that bear climbed the tree because it climbed a tree that was like this big.
You're showing me this big with your hands?
Yeah,
What's
people
this
can't
big?
see. It was maybe like a 12-inch tree.
Okay.
And it was right at first light. We had gone in there with me and my dad, and we had got on it. They started treeing, and it was like I said, it was right first thing. So we're going in there, and right on the edge of the field, it turns into kind of swamp. So it's all that spruce fir swamp.
Okay.
And we're going in there, and it's dark. And once you get in there, like you can kind of see out on the edge of the field, but in there, and it was, 5 or 6 minutes after legal. Like it was fast. Like we went in there, dumped, and that bear was just right there, and treed within 600 yards, I think, of where we had dumped the dogs. And we get in there, it's dark, and I was like, there's a bear up there, but I couldn't really tell what it was. And then it started moving, and the whole tree is going back and forth swaying, because it's only like I said, like a 12-inch spruce tree it's in. It's moving up there, and the whole thing's swaying back and forth in there.
Well,
and
I'm
then
sure that fired the dogs up, especially for some young dogs.
Yeah, definitely did. And so that was big, seeing them starting to treat some bears on their own, and really exciting to see. And then, I still where they got to make some progress on them, which, I was talking to Alex, he said his dogs did the same thing when they were young. Those bears that just didn't want to climb.
Yeah.
After a while, they would, give up before his dogs were, which is kind of like, but it's like, you got to remember this still. It's their first season. So like I said, patience is a big thing. They got to, get more experience, and then they'll feel comfortable, I think, staying with those bears on the ground. So, like you'll probably see some tonight. Dixie's got that kind of longer lean build, kind of similar to Sever, and she's got some more speed, but Chooch, I would say, has got a little more grit. Well, she'll stick with the bear longer. Dixie would quit a little bit earlier. So, but I think I'll definitely see some difference this year. So, so hopefully here, if this weather stays warm, I'm gonna probably try to get down to West Virginia here before the non-resident training season ends here by the end of March. So, so if the grass starts to green up, and I'll make a trip down there. So
there you go.
So,
I need another good story.
All right. I would probably say when I went down with Alex there, I already kind of told the one about Chooch Tree and that big bear by herself. But we went down for that early season they have in West Virginia there. I think it was over Labor Day weekend when it opened. So it was the first day we went out that morning. We started, and it was hot. It was like 80 degrees that morning. We started hiking up the mountain. And this is kind of like, I had gone through training season, and, they had treated some bears. I would say they definitely started some bears, but would not put, they bark at them, they engage a little bit, but they didn't, really stick with it and really put the pressure on to get them to climb. And we were going up, and all of a sudden the dog just erupted, and they just treated that bear instantly, and my dogs were right in there with Alex's,
nice.
treating it, and then I ended up shooting it out. So that was kind of the first bear I had shot down to the dogs, and that I was able to harvest over it, and then end up killing another one later in West Virginia too. But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
get to shoot a bear over your own dogs.
Yeah. And thankfully it wasn't. It was early too, so it wasn't too bad of a pack out. It wasn't one of those brutal ones like we had the next day. I think we didn't end up killing a bear until 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and it was a long pack out.
Like
so
5 miles in there.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Yeah. Well, even the day that I hunted with you guys, I had to leave early. Alex assured me, he's like, we'll kill a bear before you have to leave, which we did. And I think I left. You guys were still cutting everything up to pack out when I left, and I think like you guys got back to the trucks like an hour after me or something. So it's not like I left super early, but it was like 2 miles in there, I think.
Yeah, and that was
the worst part. Was like the 300 yards back up the
rock
cliff. After that, it wasn't
yeah.
too bad.
Yeah, we had a couple pack outs like that. They're similar this year. It was just brutal until we get to the top and get out. So
yep.
So luckily, that day was nice because there was a bunch of people, so you could split the weight up. Because we had a couple this year. It was heavy pack outs of 70, 80 pounds.
Oh, I bet.
In your pack.
So
on top of the 20-some pounds that are already in there with all the water and supplies for the dogs in case something happens.
Exactly.
So.
Well, you got any more stories?
Nothing like crazy exciting. I mean, just due to, I haven't been hunting with dogs since, these dogs only basically a year now, or just over a year. So, trying to think what else I got. I can go with the recent hunt we had. I think we ended up killing 5 coons that night, all out of single trees in like an hour and a half. It was just like we got into the spot and they just like short races, like they just kept treeing stuff. There was a bunch of coons right here and like it was just like this nasty thick area. It was all briars, but it was like where water was kind of coming out of a cornfield, one of those draws, and there were just a bunch of coons in there. That was fun. It was definitely heavy walking out of there, so I put them all in my backpack and they were spilling out the top of it, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm packing a bear out right now because I probably had 80 pounds of coons in there.
Yep. Well, we're gonna see if we can tree some coon tonight.
Yeah, we'll definitely tree some coons tonight, so you'll get to experience it. It's gonna be definitely. I'll be curious to see what your take is on it, because like the first time I went with Alex, I'm going just because the dogs trail silently, they don't bark until they tree. The first time I was like, man, this is kind of like, it's just different. It's kind of almost like weird, like you don't hear them. Because all of a sudden it's like, oh, they got one treed. Where, I mean, it's easier when you got the Garmin, like I can look and be like, they're trailing one, but
you know what they're doing.
Yeah, when you're just kind of following someone, they're like, oh, they got one treed. It's like, really?
Yep.
Especially after growing up with coon hounds, listening to them trail all the time. Because at that point, I didn't realize that they trailed silently either.
Gotcha.
So that was, I hadn't really looked into them too much that first time I met them, because I had actually, like I said, I was looking at getting bear dogs and stuff after going and having so much fun up in Maine and Idaho and stuff, that I had looked into it and was like, oh, this guy's treating bears with a couple dogs. But I didn't really look into the breed too much until after I went coon hunting with them and looked into them quite a bit. And then after we treed those 3 that one day in train season, I was like, all right, I'm doing this. So,
well, good deal. We're gonna see what we do tonight, and like I said, it'll be interesting to see how your dogs keep progressing at young dogs, and look forward to kind of watching and seeing how they do.
Yeah, it's definitely been fun. I think there'll be a big difference this bear season compared to last. I mean, there was a huge difference just from training season started in August to where they're at in December. So so I'm expecting similar results here. So
for sure. So alrighty, well, thank you very much.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.